It helps if I unmute. Hello, Internet, and welcome to the Free-to-Play cast, brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. It is episode 161. Last week I erroneously said 159, while the title said 160, because I'm dumb and forgot to update the show notes header correctly. But we are on episode 161. We've got lots of free-to-play news to bring to you. Before we do that, let's meet our hosts. It's me. And Jason Winter. How are you, sir?
And also your dog.
And also my beagle.
Yeah. I'm doing pretty well. I'd like to say that this is because of Movember, but really I just am lazy and decided not to shave for a few days.
Ah, got it. Zach was supposed to join us today. Unfortunately, had a late-minute conflict. So back-to-back episodes where it's just Jason and I, and we will try not to fight.
Also, Zach can't grow a beard, so can't grow facial hair. Because I know you had the great porn mustache for a while. So.
Yeah, I could do the mustache and goatee. I can't do the full beard though. I can't get the chops to grow in. I look like a cat. It's like four hairs doing their own thing on the sides
kind of
there.
Thin grayish thing going on.
Yeah, I can't do it. All right, let's get started with the news. Enough beard chat.
Need new character creator.
All right, so we're recording this on November 18th. You'll be watching it on the 19th after noon Eastern. So it's okay to talk about this first thing because nobody's going to see it until the embargo drops. Now, I don't know what we do if they delay the embargo.
And make sure you don't put up the free-to-play cast early, yeah.
Right. I don't know what we do if they delay the embargo, which does happen from time to time. But
just get over this whole section.
Right, I'll just put a block over it on YouTube. 8-minute just black box with no audio. So TERA, the MMORPG, the action one by NMOS Entertainment, Bluehole Studios, is going to be dropping a new class. Now that class drops December 8th? Couldn't remember if it was the 7th or the 8th. In part of the Knockout update. Now, the new class is the Brawler. It's a tanking, damage-dealing class with big power fists that are just big metal gauntlets with, like, flames and shit flying off of them. And basically, the idea of the class is you just punch things in the face until your heart is content. I had a chance to preview the class. There'll be an article up tomorrow as well on my initial thoughts, pros and cons with the new Brawler class. But I wanted to kind of chat a little bit with you. Not only that, the new class, there are a couple new features that you and I have talked about behind the scenes and maybe have a bit of mixed opinions on. 2 new dungeons and some other things. So first, let's start with the Brawler itself. Obviously, that's the big one. We've also just come off of the Gunner and the Reaper, and so it seems to be classes being added to TERA pretty consistently, pretty quickly. I was surprised to see a new class this soon after the Gunner. Were you?
Yeah, I mean, usually you see games introduce new classes, almost like once a year or so, once every other year, maybe with an expansion or something. So to put something out, when was the Gunner? It was like 3-4 months ago, something like that?
While you're chatting, I'll look it up.
Okay, well, it was about 3 or 4 months ago. That's what I think. So yeah, to put something else out this quickly is pretty amazing. I mean, is this something that was out in the Korean version for a while? So maybe it was a little.
Yeah, it's already out there, obviously.
So maybe a little less work than straight up, complete from scratch kind of thing we see in a lot of MMOs. So yeah.
So the Gunner came in the Fate of Arun expansion, and that was May 5th.
Oh, it's been that long. Okay.
Yeah, so we've had 6 months.
7, I guess 7 even by December, yeah.
Yeah, which is because it'll launch in December. That's still pretty quick in my book as far as brand new classes.
Well, when it's just punchy, I guess it's not hard.
Right, but I will tell you, it does change the dynamic a bit. So the idea behind it is, you have your warriors and your paladins and stuff, right? And they rush in and maybe pop or provoke or a shield slam of some type for some initial aggro, they beat it up a little bit, and then you have this rotation of abilities that generate threat. Your tank is usually, in most games, not anywhere near your highest DPS. In fact, most of the times it's towards the bottom of those charts, just above the healers, if your DPS is any good. And you have these threat-generating abilities to just hold the target busy. The Brawler doesn't take that route. It says, you're going to tank by just beating the hell out of something and putting up big DPS numbers, and your sheer power and damage is what's going to hold aggro. So for those of you, I kind of likened it to, those guys that play a mage and love to rip off the tank and just burst damage the hell out of something and pull off of the tank. This is actually a good class for those types of players to go in and be the tank, because they get to be the tank and do all the damage that they're used to. It's kind of a unique thing. Now, there are some life-saving abilities like, oh shit, somebody did pull, I can taunt and bring it back real quick, but then I've got to ramp up my damage. And there's a mechanic in there that a combo system, so like you see in the fighting games, combo 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 with each consecutive hit. If you build that combo up, you're dealing more damage as your combo goes higher and higher. So there's a lot of interesting little things here on just do as much damage as you can and don't stop doing damage, because if you keep doing damage, you're going to do even higher amounts of damage.
Yo, dog, I heard you like damage.
Exactly. I heard you like damage in your damage, so we added some damage to your tank. It was actually fun. The class was pretty fun. I liked it better than the Gunner preview I had done. The Gunner, while I did think some of the abilities were cool, it didn't resonate with me. The Brawler did. There were some drawbacks on this one, though.
I was hoping to hear some, because now it sounds like damage on aggro and tank and what.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to go beat the piss out of something, then the Brawler is definitely a good class for you to do it. There's also fighting games, again, I keep going back to, and Patrick Treeshark from En Masse said the same thing. There's a lot of fighting game similarities to the Brawler. There's even juggle mechanics, so if you use abilities to knock your enemies up into the air, and you can keep doing damage while they're in the air and not let them land. So a nod to the fighting games in a lot of respects with the class. As far as some of the cons, though, and this could be, take this with a huge grain of salt, Jason, because this could be the fact that I'd never played this class before. I was immediately max level, immediately in a dungeon that I wasn't familiar with because it's new. The Dreadnought dungeon, cool little airship dungeon with some nice little boss mechanics. Stay out of the water, it electrifies.
I thought it was always stay out of the fire.
I know.
I can't even go in water? Jeez.
Yep, nope, you can't stand in anything now. And so it could be that I just hadn't mastered the class yet and didn't know the mechanics of the fights, and so I didn't know what abilities were coming to time the way I reacted to them. It felt like I was animation locked quite a bit and took a lot of damage that on another class I wouldn't have taken. Now, I know some abilities in TERA animation lock, but for the most part, like when I'm playing my archer, I don't stop moving. Ever. Like, I just throw abilities, and keep moving, and so it's very easy to get out of telegraphs. I felt like I would trigger an ability, and I would be stuck in that position while the animation went off, and they weren't always quick animations. So I'd be animation stuck as a telegraph went off and had no prayer of getting out of it. Again, that might be something that, a better tank than I with this class on my first go-around could be able to mitigate by knowing the fight, and so I'm not going to pop these abilities until after the boss pops this big ability. But it was a little hard to get used to, and I was dying all over the place. Our healer tried their best, but we were just dying all over the place. So I don't know. I liked it better than the Gunner. The other thing I have is, like, the new classes are so different from the original classes that the original classes in some respects seem really, really boring to play compared to the newer ones. So I'm just not quite sure where the future of some of these things in TERA are going.
You get that sometimes when an MMO goes on in years. They had to put out 7, 8 whatever classes originally, so they're all going to be kind of generic. Your generic tank, generic DPS, generic mage, whatever. And then later on, once they know the game better, and they know what kind of stuff players are going to do, then they can go with the more complex and interesting classes. So I don't think that's necessarily unique to TERA. I think a lot of games have. I know Lotro's had that. I look at the Revenant in Guild Wars 2 being all kinds of wacky now. So I think that's kind of a thing. In general, though, talking about your being animation locked, maybe that's the disadvantage of a Brawler. And it sounds like that would make sense, that it's kind of slow, that it does have the ability to get interrupted and not get your attacks off very quickly. So maybe that's the disadvantage of it. Because otherwise, I'm seeing it's like a tank, except it does better damage. Why the hell wouldn't I want that?
Also has a rage meter. There's so many different things the class does. Has a rage meter that you build up the rage meter, and it opens up a whole new set of abilities, which are very visually impressive. Some very cool rain of fire type things. All in all, I give it a thumbs up. If you like doing damage and you don't like, you've never tanked before, this might be a great way for you to try out tanking while doing something that is very familiar to you, just pumping out a ton of damage. And there are some unique aspects to it. Of course, gender locked again. Female only and race locked as well, just as with the gunner and whatever. So I actually asked them about that too. I didn't expect them to answer it. Like you do this too. When we go to interviews, we're like, okay, these are the questions we're going to ask. These are the 6 I'll get answers to. These are the 2 that are going to be shirked and skirted, and they're not going to answer. Mm-hmm. They totally did. I said, okay, look, what's going on? The last couple of classes have been gender locked. Fine, I really don't have a problem with gender locking myself, but I do have a problem when it wasn't the norm for your game, and now all of a sudden is. And they said exactly what you and I thought was going on, and what everybody probably thinks going on. It's just resources. Yeah. It's just resources and time, and if they wanted to open it up to more races and make a male and female, they could, but then they couldn't release the classes as fast as they have. And to them, that is the priority, is releasing new classes faster. So we get a bunch of female characters in a row here.
It's interesting that they have both been, the last 2 have been female gender locked, so.
Yeah, I don't know what's, okay, you did a female, do a male, do a female, do a female, whatever, like maybe alternate, I don't know. But all female all the time in TERA. Although I guess that kind of makes sense given their marketing. Given their armor. Speaking of Knockout update, 2 new dungeons and new armor set. They're kind of condensing PvP and PvE armor into one set. So good on you guys for that are at max level grinding out multiple sets.
I've never figured that out. I've never figured out why you have sets.
The one thing that I told you that they were doing, and you kind of went, I'd like your opinion on here. So when they're adding a new feature that when you run dungeons, if you die, you can immediately res on the spot and just rejoin the fight, even if it's a boss fight, by spending some gold. Now, all of these numbers could change. Again, the thing isn't coming out until December, but in our demo it was 50 gold, and you could immediately res on the spot. You could do that 10 times in a dungeon before you couldn't do it anymore. Now, of course, you could still accept your healer's res and things like that if you want to, but boom, you could do this. Now, when they presented it, they used the idea of this will help keep new dungeon runners feeling like they're making progress and staying in the dungeon rather than giving up. You maybe had a different point of view on this one.
Well, I mean, it depends on how. I don't play TERA. I don't know how much 50 gold is. That's what you get from killing 3 mobs or something that you need like 3 days of farming on. Do you have any concept of that? A lot or a little?
No, it's been too long. The last time I actively played was right when Fate of Arun launched. 50 gold isn't all that much, particularly at the high levels, but I have no concept on if I could get that in a day or 2 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how much it is, because if it's a fair bit, if it requires a lot of work, then it's the sort of thing that new players aren't going to want to spend on because they don't have a whole lot, whereas experienced players who've been playing forever have thousands and thousands of golds. They're the ones who are going to be most able to be able to afford that sort of thing. So I'm sort of iffy about that, and just on that level. And then it's just even sort of the whole, well, if you're in the fight and you just want to spend money to get back up, it just seems to kind of cheapen it a little bit in my mind. I don't know. It's kind of.
So you're not a fan?
No, not especially. I mean, I want to, like I said, I want to see how much it is, see how it works, see if the dungeons are really that hard that you need to be able to.
The new dungeons are hard, I'll tell you that much. I will tell you that much. And you TERA players that are watching, in the comments, give us an idea. Like, if the price stays at 50 gold, is that like a, okay, fine, I'm going to spend repair money anyway, and whatever. Give us an idea of how important 50 gold is in the grand scheme as far as your average player. Some of you play in the market, I know that's going to be nothing. But your average player, how fast can they get 50 gold to do this? It was convenient during the press demo. I will tell you that.
Because they probably gave you an account with 20,000 gold on it.
No, they gave us an account with 1,000 gold
Okay.
while we were playing, and it was another press cohort of mine, and we were all brawlers, so we're all juggling like groups of mobs, and they just keep flying up in the air. It was interesting. If it sounds interesting to you, it's definitely worth a check out. I'll put it right there. That's okay. If you like what you heard, you'll probably like it. Go check it out. What else? What else we got today? Ooh, Tree of Savior. Lots of people asking us to talk about Tree of Savior, and really we just don't have a lot of news on Tree of Savior.
They don't put a whole lot out, and they have probably the worst website I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's so up and down all really the time. For what we're talking about today, though, huge shout out to Steparo and Inven for supplying translated stuff and videos, and we wouldn't know what we know about this game, which is damn little to begin with without people like Steparo and the Inven site. It's going into open beta in Korea soon with 53 classes. Good Lord.
That'll work fine. It'll all be perfectly balanced.
Well, I'm not worried about balance. I'm more worried about are there really differences in the classes? Because if you watch gameplay of Tree of Savior, which is kind of an ARPG type game, you see the traditional hotbar, and they have a bunch of abilities. It's not like each class has 3 abilities. So does there really become a difference between class 51 and 52? I don't know. But let's talk first about the art style, because this is kind of a different art style than we see in a lot of games. It reminds me of like the Legend of Mana, Secret of Mana type series back on the PlayStation 1 and even earlier.
It does have that old JRPG look.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm so in favor of it, it's not even funny. What do you think?
You know, I was only just vaguely following Tree of Savior a little bit, but then I watched some of your videos, and I was like, this is kind of neat. Like, I could see myself getting into this a little bit.
There are some people on our site that think it should not be going into open beta yet.
Yeah, I saw that in the comments. Well, there's one guy who like wallow text.
Yeah, lots of bugs and general functionality issues. If you've been lucky enough to get access, we're still trying to get access. We have a press contact that is trying to work things out for us. But if you've been playing on the Korean servers, let us know. Is it ready for open beta? Throw it in the comments. I'm a big fan of the art style. I like the ARPG formula. This one's probably going to be a bit linear for me, but it makes sense given the context of the story and everything taking place on, moving up this big tree. Well, that's kind of a linear path to begin with, right? I'm really looking
branch out a little bit here and there.
Oh, God. I'm really looking forward to Tree of Savior. I want to get my hands on this. I'm really interested in how they're going to monetize it. I mean, I would expect the usual consumables and XP boosts and things like that. But with 53 classes, it makes you wonder, is some of that stuff going to be in there too?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was thinking kind of like Marvel Heroes, to go with another ARPG. You get a few of those guys, you can get them for free, but most of the rest of them you have to buy either with in-game or with cash shop currency. So yeah, kind of that same thing maybe.
To be fair, Marvel Heroes learned its lesson very quickly, though.
Well, yeah, I mean they learned how to make it a decent, system.
Right, because you could get those characters in-game, but the likelihood was 0.
Yeah, pretty much.
They learned that lesson very quickly. So
yeah.
Kudos to Gazillion.
I'm sure Nexon will figure that out too.
A little pessimistic there. Little pessimistic there. I'm looking forward to it. We still don't have dates and everything as far as a Western release or anything like that, but trying to get our hands on it. As soon as we do, you can bet the first look will be up the next morning. Speaking of first looks, I know we didn't talk a lot about Tree of Savior. I'm sorry, guys. We just don't have a lot.
We have videos. Go to the watch.
We
the
do.
That's really all there is.
Yeah, I mean, you can't read them if you can't read Korean, but that's okay. If you want to check out some more videos, head on over to mmobomb.com. There's a new post up there that has like 5 videos on it with a bunch of different classes in their mid-20s, taking a look at mid-level 20s, taking a look at all the abilities and gameplay. So excited for it. Probably the thing that's highest on my radar right now. Speaking of first looks, Supernova, I'm going to let you start this one. MOBA, RTS
So right up our alley.
by Bandai Namco, and currently in closed beta. We posted the first look yesterday, I think it was. It's like an hour long because I hit that I was a total noob, and it made me do some training stuff, which I figured, you know what, I'm just going to leave in the video anyway. And then we played a whole match, which we didn't finish because the match was like half an hour in, and nobody was even close. So I think there's a little bit of tweaking to be done there. I kind of actually enjoyed this. Now, I don't know if I would play it all that often because I'm just not into MOBAs like that, but I actually enjoyed Supernova with the RTS elements where you create your waves of creeps. You power them up, you decide what's in there. Some are land only, some can attack in the sky, vice versa, some can attack both. So you can cater your waves of creeps. The rest of it is pretty standard. 3 lanes, beat some shield generators, beat a base. Your character has a multitude of abilities and passives and things like that. You're leveling up those abilities or stats. Very, very, very MOBA meta. It's all there pretty much, including stat sheets with technologies that you can put in, a la like a rune page from League of Legends. But I enjoyed it for the RTS elements more than I did for the MOBA elements. I didn't totally suck at it, which was new to me. Playing a MOBA, I wasn't totally awful. I like the drop-in mechanic, where every so often you could just fly from your base to somewhere on the map immediately.
For the one time you dropped right into like.
And I called it too.
Just...
During the tutorial, when they showed that, I was like, oh, that'll be useful. I am sure at some point I will drop myself right into a spot that I get slaughtered. And in the first match, it happened, and it's on the video. And I love the sci-fi setting. I love the sci-fi setting. It looks good. Looks great. This one's not too bad for me. What were your impressions?
Yeah, I mean, I got a chance to play it a little bit on one of its early betas or alphas or whatever, and yeah, pretty much the same impression. I mean, it's a standard MOBA. It does the same thing as MOBA does, but yeah, it has a couple of little tweaks. The sci-fi setting is kind of cool, and like you said, the spawning your own guys and so on, which reminds you a little of Orcs Must Die Unchained, which also has that same kind of thing where you play the cards to decide what kind of guys you're going to get. So yeah, I mean it's something a little different. It's not radically different, but if you're looking for a simple-ish MOBA and you just want to try something different from the LoL, Dota, whatever, it's probably going to be a decent choice.
Could this become a game for Jason Winter to play on a regular basis? Still
too MOBA-ish. still just because again, first of all, your match went like 35 minutes or whatever, and I'm just watching you. Hey, you go forward, you hit some minions and a guy, and then you retreat. Then you go back, you hit some minions and a guy, and you retreat. And it hits minions and a guy. It's still kind of the same thing.
And nobody was even close to winning at that point.
Yeah.
No, I had pushed the bottom lane to the second shield generator. The mid and the top got pushed past the first generator. Coming the other way, they had pushed the first generator on all 3 of our lanes, and that was after like 30 minutes. There was still 2 more generators in just about every lane except mine, and then the Aegeus, I think is what it's called, or the Augur, I forget what it's called off the top of my head, the Nexus, to destroy too. So it was, maybe that's a good match. I don't know. Maybe that's a terrible match. Nobody's really doing anything.
Well, yeah, if you guys were all pros, you'd have been hopping in and teleporting and slaughtering each other and pushing right along. I'm sure, but
yeah,
you're all playing defensively a little bit.
Nobody was jungling or anything like that. Yeah. Everybody was just in lanes doing their thing. I don't know. I'm gonna give it a 6, a 6.5, 6.5.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
It is neat. If you like MOBAs, there's nothing to not like about this if you're looking for something sci-fi, and if you like some RTS elements, all the better. I mean, you don't have hundreds of things to choose from, like in a StarCraft type match, but there are little elements of strategy with your creeps, which I thought was pretty cool. Now, I don't want to do a full review for this next piece, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Paladins going into closed beta today. Or yesterday. Right now it's running from noon Eastern to midnight Eastern every day, and it will eventually go to 24. Now, I'm going to reserve my comments for the weekly bombs. We're not going to do a full review because it's only been one day. We'll talk about that next week. What are your general impressions of Hi-Rez Studios' foray into the team-based shooter?
Yeah, I mean, I saw some videos on it a couple months ago when they were like showing out different characters, and then I see you playing, and it's the same kind of thing. It looks, it's like it's in that same vein of Overwatch or Gigantic or whatever those other games all are. That it's got kind of the capture point thing. It does its own little unique bit with having the spawning the siege engine, having that be the means by which you win essentially by attacking their base and so on. And like you say, it looks fun. It's something I'll definitely check out maybe later on. I've got so much other crap I'm doing right now. You gave me a key and everything. But apart from you, I actually have another friend on Twitter who's a big Smite
No, you
player.
don't. I'm your only friend, Jason.
But anyway, he's a big Smite player, and he was playing it and saying, "Wow, I really like Paladins. It's a lot of fun." So it's definitely got its charms, apparently. Despite it almost seemed like it was sort of the like bastard child of all these other games coming out. Like, it announced itself. Everyone just shit on it immediately. Like, oh god, another one. Geez, Hi-Rez, what are you doing? And now that people are actually getting a chance to play it, and people are saying, it's kind of fun. So
I am not bad at it.
Well, I don't know. I did watch your video.
Okay, the first look is misleading. I go 0-2 in the first look. Ironically, prior to the first look, I had gone 12-2.
Oh, sure you did. Sure you did. It's not on video.
But
it didn't happen.
I'm really enjoying it. So let's slide over and get to the weekly bombs. We'll talk about it. Give me a rough time, you son of a... I gotta give a dub bomb to Paladins. It's fun so far, and that's coming from someone that really isn't into PvP games very strictly, and even team-based shooters and MOBAs, and it's just really not my cup of tea. See our Overwatch discussion, which some of you had some feedback about. We'll get to those comments in a minute. But it's fun. I must have played for maybe 3 or 4 hours yesterday, and then sat down to do the first look and just ran through all the information. It's easy to pick up. It's easy to control. It's fun. The characters feel different. Now, there's only 8 in the game right now, so good. I'm glad they feel different and have their own little quirks about them. But, damn, I did not think I would have this much fun with it. I love it right now. Kind of love it, and I love the card elements to it. We're not going to talk a whole lot about the game. Go watch the first look, and then tune in next week. We'll talk to Zach and Jason and get our full reviews. So dub bomb to Paladins so far. Hi-Rez Studios, kudos, nice job.
I will say that's one thing that seems a little odd to me, that having your cards be on cooldown. Passive abilities on a cooldown just seemed weird. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, it does seem weird when you first start, but it kind of it feels right. It feels right, Brian. It feels right. It feels right as you start playing a match. For instance, I was playing Fernando, and I had a card that doubled my health pool.
Sure.
It gave me a 100% bonus. And so when I'm running around with that, I have a distinct health advantage over a lot of the players on the board, and it's very hard to bring me down. But when you do, now I'm a normal player for 80 seconds, and it's not constantly having to overcome these insurmountable challenges. So yeah, it is a bit odd at first, but when you start sorting through the cards and looking at what these things do, it's basically shutting down an overpower for a little while, and it feels right. They did it right.
You know how they used to have the cards? Was that I think it was Paladins. They used to have it where if you'd pick a card when you're first level up, and you'd get the level 1 ability. Like you might get plus 1,000 hit points. If you pick that at level 2, you'd get 2,000 hit points or so on instead. So they've changed that up a little bit.
I like the way they do it now. Okay. Especially since you have to you're making a very quick decision. Here's 3 cards. You need to pick one.
Well, it was still the 3 cards before. It's just depending on what level you wanted to take them, how great the advantage would be.
Right. I like the way it's done now. And then when we get into constructed decks, I think it makes a lot more sense to do it the way they're doing now, rather than to not only, when you do a constructed deck, think about what cards you want in that deck, but then if I get this card, at what level would I want to use it? And I think the meta there gets a bit too random. Now you're hoping for a card at the right time, and at the right level. So, what about you? Weekly bomb.
I'm going to dub bomb to Star Wars: The Old Republic.
What?
Yeah, God, can you believe it? Well, it's because they gave me a subscription, so that's why it's actually decent. Not the free-to-play version. No, heck no. But still, in general, I mean, it took them 4 years, but they finally kind of got it right by putting emphasis on the interesting story parts. Now, I'm leveling up, in addition to trying to get myself up to doing the new story. I haven't even done the new story yet. I'm still trying to level my trooper up to 60 so he can do that stuff. But I've been leveling a Sith Inquisitor on the side, and just really enjoying that I can do for now for the low levels. Maybe later on I'll have to do a little more stuff, but low levels, just being able to do like the main story of my character and the main story of the planet. And that is just about getting me enough XP that I need to advance along at a right pace. I don't have to do all the side quests, all the kill 10 Womp Rats quests. They're really, it's not exactly the same as the 12 times XP thing, but they're doing a good job of emphasizing the parts of the game that should be emphasized and not all the boring crap in between. So I really have enjoyed playing it since I've gotten back in, and still got the main story stuff to do. So that's for the Fallen Empire stuff. So I'm actually looking forward to getting to that. So kudos to Star Wars.
BioWare impresses Jason Winter.
Again, it took them 4 years to impress me, but
that's the headline of the
job.
Year. What server are you on? Do you mind sharing?
I don't mind sharing, but I don't remember the name of it.
If you're on the Ebonhawk, friend me up. All right. Viewer bombs and questions. Tepik says, regarding Jason's conversation about progression from last week's show, if you look back at MUDs, there often wasn't the same kind of linear progression via zones that MMOs today have. You might find certain zones slightly tougher than others, but on the whole, you could go to any zone in the game and find a range of difficulty for all characters, with the exception that the ones immediately around the starting area tended to be much easier. I wonder if this is where the MMO-style progression developed from. Kind of a good point. I remember Final Fantasy XI had that aspect, too, where there were just areas of a zone you stayed away from. What do you think of Tepik there? And
I don't think it necessarily comes from MUDs. I mean, I think the leveling and progression in general, the idea comes from... is he talking about, like... No, I think that comes from, like, single-player games, and before them, even your old, like, Dungeons & Dragons stuff, where, you just rapidly increase from first level to 10th level and get all sorts of capabilities and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't think it necessarily came from MUDs.
But the point is, if you look back at MUDs, you do see kind of what the progression you were talking about, where it was wide open. Just go do whatever you want, and you had something to do in every zone. It wasn't, you're level 18, this is a 45 zone, stay out.
Yeah, it's been so long since I played anything resembling MUD.
See, that was that was before my time with MMOs. First MMO ever was EverQuest Online Adventures for the PlayStation 2. And then Final Fantasy XI, which I played for years, and then simultaneously fell into World of Warcraft. So that's kind of where I started. Then I went back and played like EverQuest 1 and Ultima and some of the MUDs and things like that, just to learn the history. Go ahead, sir. Next one.
All right, next one is from Chris Nick. Says, and I assume he's talking about Overwatch here. Says, that's the thing about Blizzard. They are a huge, huge company. They got the money. They also been making games a lot longer than many other gaming companies out there. They have a very large fan base. Last, they make quality games that do pretty well in sales, as well as games that stay around and stand the test of time. Also, these days, free-to-play games as well as mobile games have been getting a bad rep by the gaming community, mainly because of microtransactions. Some people are getting tired of it. Also, I'm starting to see more free-to-play games shut down. Others get passed on to a different company, and even then, the game still does horrible and will die. Speaking of Dragon's Prophet, anyway.
Oh,
yeah, that went away earlier this week.
Oh,
on the thing is, though, the reason a lot of free-to-play games get shut down is because the pay-to-play games get converted to free-to-play, and then they shut down. So that's kind of part of that, but. Yeah, I mean...
I'm all in favor of shitty things shutting down.
Oh, sure. Usually that's the reason why pay-to-play games go free-to-play, is because they're shitty. But...
Wow, you brutal.
I am terrible today.
You are brutal. What is in that coffee?
No, it's got the water now. I had the coffee earlier.
+1 to crit. Great name, by the way. Says, so Magic Man, you say you wouldn't buy Overwatch because it's not your kind of game, but you would play it if it were free just because it was free and has a big name behind it. That seems like a problem on your end and not really much to do with the price. For example, if someone is selling feces for $40 and then someone else is giving it away for free, I'm not going to take it just because it's free. It's still the same thing. Your decision should be based on the quality of the product, not the payment model alone, and certainly not the company behind it. Bit of a faulty analogy there. But, yeah, my decision is based on the quality of the product, and my interpretation of the quality is that it's not the type of game that I would play. And therefore, if there's a monetary investment, I'm not going to buy it. If it were free, I would take a look at it. And you know what? Yesterday it worked for Paladins. It literally worked for Paladins.
That's
If Paladins had a buy to play, if it was buy to play, I wouldn't have played it because it's just generally not my type of game. It's free. I gave it a try. 2 hours in, I bought the 1999 Founders Pack. I shelled out the money for it. So there's no better example than that's the way I look at Overwatch. I'm not going to pay $50 or $60 for a box that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be interested in just for the chance that maybe I might be interested in it. And the feces analogy, I'm not interested in it either way.
Yeah, there you go.
So, if some big game that I just don't care about, some big MOBA, actually, let's use a Blizz example, Heroes of the Storm. Heroes of the Storm would be the feces for me. I don't play it for free, and I wouldn't play it for a price because I'm judging it based on the product itself. So,
or in my case, I'm not into ARPGs really, but I've played a little of Marvel Heroes, a little of Path of Exile because they're free. I haven't played Diablo 3 because I don't want to spend $60 for it or $40 or whatever it's costing now. So, there you go.
There you go.
All right, next one is from Michael Loisel. It says, "You guys are awesome. This is what you get when both people have a point and are trolling each other at the end of the episode. The bomb, guys. The bomb." I disagree with you, Michael. That is a horrible point. You should feel ashamed of yourself.
Jason and I have been doing this together. Not only have we both been doing this stuff for a long period of time independently, but we've actually been doing shows together. How long has it been? It's easily, 4 years now? 3 years?
No, not 3 maybe. Yeah, 4
yeah,
years.
It's between 3 and 4.
I just started with Game Breaker 4 years ago. So
yeah, it's easily 3.
Yeah, 3 about 3. I think that's when you started with Game Breaker.
Yeah. Was it? I guess 3.5 was when I started with Game Breaker, and that was the first time we had done shows. But we did.
That's right. That was when we started doing the news stuff. You came on board with that pretty quick because you were the other Mike B.
Right.
Yeah,
so
okay.
you guys, we did what? We did Twemo. We did Derpy Dragon.
I never did Derpy. I never did.
You never did Derpy. What other shows we did the Guild Wars 2 show? I think once or twice, just because they needed filled. Yeah. But mostly Twemo, and yeah, we've been getting under each other's skin ever since then, because we know exactly what the other one hates.
They're like an old married couple.
Slash Coon says A-bomb to Magic Man. Oh man, for not knowing the value of his own money and having a way too good paying job. I am very much aware of the value of my money.
Even if he wants to see crappy movies for $15. So the part that really bothers me.
And that's the whole thing. If you missed last week's show, the argument there is value per dollar on a subscription, and this is where Jason and I went off. And if we talk about this too long, we're gonna go off again. Go ahead.
Is a friend of mine who did have way too good of a paying job, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see this movie. It's gonna suck, but I gotta see it anyway." And I'm like, "Why are you burning your $15 to see a movie you don't even like?" But he's like, but it's a superhero movie. I don't care. It sucks.
Okay, see, now that's just dumb. Why would anybody do that?
That's
That's like buying a $100 Founders Pack for a game you know you're not going to play.
There you go.
Nobody ever does that.
Nimrealm5669 says, "Jason, Blizzard is starting to be on that path that you were talking about, going to whatever zone you want to.
Something I told you about with Legion last week.
With the new expansion, they are basically implementing the system you stated, which I can then further see them doing it based on how well the system works. By going to any zone to level, mean they could do it for the whole world. I figure Legion is a test ground for them to do that, and then they will follow it up with doing it for the whole game. So yes, there is a game out there that is doing that sort of progression where you'll be able to level where you want and how you want. Before I get to the rest of this thing, I'm going to say that's good, but it just seems weird going into WoW, which has had it the other way for so long, that it's hard. Like I said, this was SWTOR when they were scaling. It's just hard to do when your game is not set up to do it. So I don't have the greatest.
It feels odd.
Yeah, and of course it pisses off the other people who've done it the hard way, and these other people are getting it so easy now, whatever. But anyway, going on.
Bastards in Final Fantasy XIV with your relic weapons.
Going on, it says the only problem with that type of leveling is that you were trying to tell a story in your MMO world, and
Final Fantasy XI artifact gear. You sons of, you got it the easy way.
And you want it to be a seamless story. Then
sorry, I'm bitter.
Your story won't follow a point or a path that is clear and defined. Thereby, you end up just having a game for the most part where you grind out levels with no clear defined story to go along with it. Hence, having zones where you have to go based on your level, these zones then become an area of the story based on your level progression. And I can agree with that as well. It's why I've kind of also said that I think trying to do perfect linear single-player RPG type stories in MMOs really doesn't work that well. I think that's also something that they need to shy away from a little bit more. We've talked about this on other shows too. About you're the chosen one. You're the one who has the great destiny to kill the emperor or whatever. You and the other 10,000 people who are playing the game as well. It's like,
says the guy who just gave Star Wars
know,
a dub off for having a great linear story.
I know. They do it pretty well, but most games are just.
Question of the week last week. If you had GM abilities in your favorite MMO, what divine power would you give your character if you could keep it forever? And why? Only one power. Elusive X Treasure says, for the question of the week, if I were to have GM powers, I would take being able to flag renames for all the terrible names on my RP servers. Talk about a pet peeve. Yes, we know your Tauren is bovine. No, it's not funny to reference it. You are not insert NPC name here. And furthermore, we can inspect your character if we want to know what class or role you are. There's a damn random button if you're just that uncreative. I think our friend Larry Everett would probably agree.
I don't disagree. Well, I still remember the one guy I saw in City of Heroes, whose name was SUP3RMAN.
Are you an RPer, Jason? Like when you get into Lotro, I could see like you putting on your wizard's hat and stuff.
I've danced naked occasionally in MMOs, but that's about the extent of it.
I don't ever want to hear you say that sentence again.
That's why I made sure to add MMOs. As I was saying that, I had to make sure I was going to add that at the end of the thing. I mean, I
just move on and let us know what Chris has to say.
All right, Chris Baker, 55 says, you don't know the storm of overpowerness you've unleashed, Magic Man. If I could have one wish in any MMO, I would take the Mount Hua sword in Age of Wushu. This sword is rewarded to the top player in the Mount Hua tournament every month, but only for 1 week. This sword allows you to combine any skills from any set without being locked out. And it constantly scales with other weapons, making its power indefinite. And essentially, this weapon would wipe out any remnant of fans Age of Wushu has left. Harsh.
Deathlog says, because most of my characters are fairly squishy, I think I would have the power to siphon 50% of health from my enemies once my characters reach 10% of health. I'll give it a 60-second cooldown, though, because if I can't survive 60 seconds, I don't need to be playing MMOs. Well, at least Deathlock was worried about making the ability overpowered.
Balance it a little bit, I guess. All right, Diggy004 says, question of the week, if I can get any divine power, I would not give myself any. Well, for a nice high and mighty road there, Diggy. I believe in a game. I find it most enjoyable when I become strong from my own effort and be able to see the accomplishments I made from playing. The divine powers of GMs are more suitable for easy access to different locations and best used for peacekeeping in the game community, not for showing off. You probably get stopped in PvP all the time.
Chris Baker is going to kill Diggy04 with the Mount Hua sword.
Or Deathlock with his Age of Wushu sword. Just like, oh, you don't want any powers?
No, that was Chris Baker. That's what I just said, the Mount Hua sword.
I'm sorry, yeah, I was looking at the class.
Sky Shadows is question of the week. Oh, that's easy. My power would be to polymorph for 10 minutes, and they would have 1% of the HP. If I'm selected, or select any other polymorph player, just because it would be funny to see a city full of dumb animals that are cursing all the time. I would like to see that, too.
Wasn't there I want to say there was like a show or a movie or something where everybody had godlike powers except for one normal guy? And I feel like that one normal guy is Diggy, and he's just going to get abused to hell.
Last one.
Mega17 says, for question of the week, rather than my favorite MMO, Guild Wars 2, in which I would just want item generation for jokes and a cheaper crafting experience, I'd like to address a long-time pet peeve of mine. For my favorite MMO character, I wouldn't give a GM power at all. Instead, I would use my temporary GM access to extract the files necessary to create an offline client with which I could feel my old MapleStory character is something I have ownership of, rather than a rental I had to leave behind when I quit the game. There's a lot of sentimental value invested there, so it bothers me that my character will be entirely lost if the game shuts down. That's actually kind of nice.
Yeah, that is cool.
for whatever game. I'd love to have my old City of Heroes characters back to just.
Yeah, that is awesome. Hey, I got a question for you from the email box. For last week's show, Felix wrote in and says, "Hey, I just watched the latest free-to-play weekly, and I'm a bit curious because I don't understand why a person that has so much contact with MMOs calls damage dealers, DD, DPS. Since as far as I know, DPS stands for damage per second, and you do not call your car kilometers per hour or miles per hour. I do not get why people are so persistent in calling the damage dealing role by a term that is used to measure their worth. If possible, I would really much hope for an answer that helps my brain understand what it is doing wrong. Kind regards, Felix." To me, you're not doing anything wrong. The only reason that I say DPS is because I come from an older school where DD actually meant direct damage, and you would look for a difference in your party composition where you had direct damage or AoE damage dealers, and you would build a party corresponding to that. And now in the WoW era forward, it's just DPS. Anybody that's going to do damage is all we're looking for. So that's at least where I come from on the whole DPS thing. That, and I think everybody knows what you're talking about either way. So it's nothing you're doing wrong.
I think it's because you want to be more precise, because obviously dealing damage is good, but you want to be able to deal damage in a certain amount of time. You do want your damage per second. So it's more like being a race car, where you do care about how many miles per hour it goes, because you're trying to outrace everybody else. So if you want to do more DPS, if you want to do more damage than everybody else, you have to maximize your DPS. So that'd be my thought.
Tanks tank, heals heal, and DPSs do DPS.
Dips.
Do dips. I don't know. That's where mine goes, because DD to me, in my head, was direct damage back then. But yeah, there you go. Jason, that's this week's show. Make sure, let me give them a question of the week. Let's chat MOBAs, guys. How would you change up the typical MOBA formula to add some new spice to the genre? With Supernova kind of putting RTS elements in there, kind of did a little something for me that made me a little bit intrigued about a MOBA, which I typically am not. So what would you change about a typical MOBA to add some new spice? Put your answers to the question of the week in the comments below. Don't forget your weekly bombs. D-bomb for something good, A-bomb for something bad. And until next week, Jason, where can everybody find you and your work, sir?
They can find me on Twitter at WinterInformal, and if anybody requests it, I will post screenshots of my dancing naked in MMOs.
Oh.
Only in MMOs, not...
Dear God, do not request it. Do
MMOs.
not request it. I'm Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magicman. You can follow me right there. Twitter at Magicman1, MAGICKMANN1. Or, of course, come on over to MMOBomb.com. Check out all the articles. We just posted like 4 different giveaways today, and we've got 1 or 2 still going up in the next day or two. Until next time, gang, stay safe, and we'll see you on the server.